Namaskar, a very good morning and warm welcome to the launch event of SCOPE ILO joint study on the impact of working from home on women executives and managers in PSEs in India. I am Ruchira, Program Officer with ILO, and on behalf of SCOPE and ILO would like to extend our thanks and deep gratitude to all the distinguished speakers, guests, participants and colleagues. Today as speakers, we are privileged to have Ms. Anuradha Prasad, Special Secretary, Ministry of Labour and Employment, Government of India, Ms. Shoma Mandal, Chairperson SCOPE, Mr. Atul Sopti, Director General SCOPE, Mr. Ranjan Mohapatra, HR Committee SCOPE, Ms. Renuka Verma from SCOPE Task Force. From ILO, we have Ms. Dagmar Walter, Director ILO DWT and Country Office India, Ms. Sanchir Takshimekh, Senior Advisor ILO ACTEMP, and Dr. Malika Basu, Gender Analyst and ILO Consultant. Thank you all for your kind presence. Just to mention, the event is being recorded. It is also live streamed, so we have many more participants who have joined us today for the event. To give a quick introduction, this is part of the initiative on empowering women in public sector enterprises in India that started in 2017 with SCOPE and ILO. The study that was undertaken was on women in leadership and management in public sector undertakings in India. Findings from study were manifold. As follow-up to the study, body of champions was created by SCOPE, drawing from different PSUs, both women and men from within its member organizations. The 12 champions became the SCOPE task force that now conducts training and sensitization sessions. In 2020, the COVID-19 pandemic has brought out a new dimension to the workplace culture of organizations, and working from home has become an inevitable option. The pandemic promoted SCOPE and ILO to initiate a second study on working from home model in PSUs. In effect, the study is a continuation of its previous collaborative work in 2017, of which the working from home arrangement was a key recommendation. This study is one of its kind, not just in country, but globally as well. We will hear more details in our subsequent sessions. With that introduction, we now move with the program agenda. We have Ms. Dagmar Walter, Director, ILO Decent Work Team for South Asia and Country Office for India. Ms. Dagmar Walter has over 20 years of her career with ILO, worked in several regions and duty stations across Africa, Europe, Americas, and now Asia, contributing to the Sustainable Development Goals 2030. She strives to foster office efficiency and team spirit for integrated technical assistance to ILO constituents in collaboration with stakeholders and development partners. Her key interest areas include tackling employment and social protection challenges from an international labor rights perspective, shaping the future of work we want through effective social dialogue. I will now request Dagmar for her welcome remarks. Over to you, Dagmar.
Thank you so much, Ruchira. Ms. Anuradha Prasad, Special Secretary, Ministry of Labour and Employment, Ms. Shoma Mandal, Chairperson SCOPE, Mr. Atul Sopti, Director General SCOPE, Mr. Rajan Mohapatra, HR Committee SCOPE, Ms. Renuka Verma, SCOPE Task Force, Ms. Chimji, Senior Advisor ILO ACTEMP, Mr. Malika Basu, all colleagues from ILO and SCOPE, and esteemed participants listening to us today. Namaskar and good morning and welcome to this event. I am indeed delighted to speak at the launch event of the SCOPE ILO joint study on the impact of work from home on women executives and managers in public sector enterprises in India. This initiative goes back to 2017 when the ILO, in collaboration with SCOPE, initiated a study on women in leadership and management in public sector undertakings, PSUs, in India. This was the first time a study of this nature was conducted across PSUs. It received active support from SCOPE's Women in Public Sector WIPS forum. The findings from the study suggested SCOPE to create a body of gender champions representing different PSUs, including both women and men, Candidates from Scope's member organizations who had successfully overcome work environment barriers or were known for their exemplary performance at work were selected to be part of this forum. These champions were capacitated to facilitate the much needed dialogues and discussions within PSUs on gender issues. The ILO trained and certified these identified champions. The 12 champions, 2 men and 10 women, became the Scope task force that now conducts gender training and sensitization sessions, focusing on equal opportunities for career advancement in PSUs. Now, we all know that the COVID-19 pandemic has brought out a new dimension to the workplace culture involving work from home and other COVID-appropriate behaviors. This study that we are looking at today looks at this, so to say, new normal prompted us, rather, I should say, to initiate this new study in collaboration with Scope on work from home model in PSUs. The study is, so to say, continuation of our previous collaborative work, and it touched upon the impact of this work arrangement on women executives and managers in the PSUs from 3 angles: women as an employee, women as a manager and supervisor, and women as homemakers. The study actually, surprisingly almost for us, we had close to 2,000 participating women executives from some 50 Scope member organizations. And what unfolded was very important and interesting findings, and I will not go into them here, but we will hear from the lead consultant who undertook the study about the findings and what came out from these interviews and the survey that was done. I would like to commend Scope for this joint venture and our extensive collaboration over the years. I do thank the Director General of Scope and his team for all the support and advice with regards to the finalization of the report. Special mention goes, of course, to Dr. Malika Basu for her expertise, wisdom, and hard work to successfully undertake the study. Also to my ACTEM team members, Mr. Ravi Peri, Senior Employment Specialist, Ms. Jyoti Galat, Senior Operations Assistant, and Ms. Ruchira Chandra, Program Officer, and all the colleagues who have worked hard to make this event a success. I do look forward to our deliberations and hope that the results will lead to further concrete improvements for women employees and managers from PSUs. While the pandemic has exposed serious vulnerabilities, it has also revealed unseen levels of generosity, courage, and faith in human nature, offering new opportunities for collective action and innovation. Jointly and in solidarity, we believe that all of us can contribute to more inclusive and resilient workplaces for all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dagmar, for your kind words and welcome remarks. With that, we now move to the next session, which is the opening address. We have Mr. Atul Sopti, Director General Scope, with us. Mr. Atul Sopti has diverse and versatile professional experience of nearly 4 decades working in different capacities, including nearly 6 years at board level. Under his leadership, Scope has given renewed impetus to evolve itself as an impactful organization of public sector through its effective policy advocacy efforts, capacity building programs, research and studies, and brand building efforts. He represents public sector on tripartite committees relating to policy on labor laws and welfare. With that, I will now request Sopti sir to kindly give his opening address to you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ruchira. Good morning, everyone. Respected, esteemed panelists today, and the senior officials from ILO, Ministry of Labor and Employment, and the public sector fraternity, ladies and gentlemen. I'm very happy to see that participants in large numbers, they are participating on this platform, Zoom platform, as well as through the various social media platform. Thanks to all the participants for joining. Today is indeed a very significant day for all of us, as all of us have joined virtually to launch this vital report on impact of work from home on women employees in public sector enterprises. In fact, as mentioned by my previous speakers also, the significance of this particular report has further amplified in the present times because we want to urgently develop a gender inclusive work policy which gives the equal opportunities for all to rise and grow, even in the adverse situations like this pandemic. But we feel that less and less women are participating as a workforce. Here I like to share some figures with you. As per the latest global gender index report of the World Economic Forum, despite significant educational gains and a robust GDP growth and the development in the country, the labor force participation rate, the women labor force participation in the country has fallen from 35% in 1990 to 22% presently, with only 14.6% senior roles are filled by the women. We did some analysis for the public sector also, based on the whatsoever is available as of now. And there is a declining trend there also. If data is to be seen, the percentage of women employees as percentage of the total employees has reduced from 10.2% in 16-17 to 8.5% in 18-19 till the time we have the data with us. And if we take at the senior level, out of 97 Ratna companies, we have only 5 CEOs and the 13 directors. Of course, the trend is changing in the recent past. When we look into these figures, we are forced to wonder where we are going wrong and what can we do to increase the female participation in the workforce, especially when there are a number of studies are there that if the women employees join the workforce, it increases the productivity also, it increases the output also. So one understanding is there that how we can lead to their growth and how we can identify the solution to the reasons that why they are not joining or continuing. Working women in India, they are faced with the dual responsibilities as caregivers to the elders, children and family, while taking care of the responsibilities of organization also. And normally as a caregiver at home, they are taken for granted. That's the reality. And what happens? Many a time this forces them to opt for the family care over the career. So understanding the need for greater gender inclusivity, as mentioned by Dagmar also, Scope and ILO, we are sensitive to the rising need of increasing labor workforce. And in fact, both the organization, we have been working very closely since the long time. And the focus has been on Sustainable Development Goal 5 and Sustainable Development Goal 8, that is gender equality and the decent work for all. So as mentioned by Ruchira also and Dagmar also, we had undertaken a study earlier, and in 2019, we have launched our network of champions and who are training this particular subject in various public sector enterprises. And I'm pleased to share here with you that recently ILO, with the support of ILO, we are going to we have planned a program to train this network of champions in the month of August and September by ILO International Training Center, Turin, Italy, under a month-long program, virtual program on empowering gender equality champions. Thanks to ILO for giving us this support and agreeing for the training of our champions there. So as mentioned earlier, that we have been thinking that how to ensure that some kind of alternate work form could be there for continuity and growth of the women employees. So we launched this study. Let me confess that although we are conducting a number of studies at scope in the recent past, but I consider this particular study as a path-breaking study and with the overwhelming response. I'm happy to share that we got excellent response to our, record or historical response to our survey. To more than, around 2,000 respondents were there. If you take as a percentage of the, total executives in PSCs, it is around 8%. And if we take the percentage of the total sample which we had identified, that is E4 to E9, then it would be close to 15 to 20%. A large sample size has been taken. So definitely results would also be, I feel, will be fact-based. And it was followed with 78 interviews with senior officials. And I would like to thank the public sector fraternity that they came forward for participation during this difficult period, because the total study was completed during the COVID period itself. That's a great achievement. Details will be shared by Dr. Mallika Basu in some time from now. But I like to share that study has not only been widely received by the public sector, but the outcomes are even more eagerly awaited by the decision makers of the public sector. We know that this remote working will continue in the new normal. We all have to deal with how to make it more formalized, how to make it more policy oriented. And we wanted to make this a study, not only a passive research study, but a result oriented study. That was the objective in mind. So Scope and ILO jointly we worked, and beside the research work which has been done, guidelines has also been suggested. This includes the guidelines to develop the policies and the framework on work from home in order to make this particular study effective, efficient, and implementable. That's the most important thing. And we are sure that the new work policies and the new suggestions which come out of this particular study, more and more female workforce will join the formal and organized structure, so that further productivity is ensured. And we are sure that many HR managers who are participating in this program and to whom we will be sending this report also, they will formulate the effective policy based on that, which are sensitive to the gender sensitive, without compromising on the commercial aspects and the quality of work, of course. That's the most important thing. Because normally people have the fear that it will have impact on the commercial aspects and the quality of work. That is taken care in our study also. So we are indeed honored so that this study is being launched, and we are joined by the successful women who are here and who have led by examples. Just to name a few: Madam Anuradha Prasad, Special Secretary, Ministry of Labor and Employment, an accomplished government officer. And since last 3 years, she is closely involved in the ongoing labor reforms in the country. She has been inspiration to Scope also and always supporting us. Thanks, madam. Your presence today encourages many. Madam Dagmar Walter, Director ILO, who with the able support of Mr. Ravi Perez and other team members has given a new dimension, I feel, to the relationship of ILO with the various stakeholders in the country. Thanks, madam, for supporting and collaborating with Scope and helping public sector at large to innovate on the workforce issues. Soma Mandalji, who is our chairperson also. And incidentally, I like to share with all of you that she is the first chairperson of a Maharatna public sector enterprise, a large public sector enterprise, which employs nearly 65,000 regular employees and many contract and casual workers. Thanks, Chimgi. Chimgi, who is the senior advisor ILO, and she has joined us from Geneva, ILO Geneva. And in fact, she is the one who has been supporting ILO Scope also in the past, and I am told she visited this place in 2016. Thanks, Chimge, for joining us and sparing your valuable time. Then, of course, we have got Dr. Mallika Vasu, whose hard work has definitely resulted in this report, a reality, and we would be hearing her. Renuka Verma is also there. She is a dynamic officer from HPCL and who joined us in some of the program. She is also a part of our network of champions. Of course, I like to mention here the name of the Ranjan Mahapatra, who is the Director, Indian Oil Corporation and the Chairman of Scope HR Committee, who is passionate on this subject. We would be hearing him also. So ladies and gentlemen, at the end, I'd like to say the report has been prepared with the positive intent of making the remote working an effective, efficient, and implementable. Hence, would request the senior management of PSCs who have joined here or who would be getting the report also to give due consideration to the recommendation of the guidelines in the report. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. As graduate engineer trainee at NALCO and rose through the ranks to take over the mantle of Director Commercial at NALCO in the year 2014 before taking over as Director Commercial SAIL in 2017. In her leadership as Chairman and Director, SAIL has implemented vital marketing strategies which has witnessed increasing sales and expanding the market reach for the company. Will now request Shoma ma'am for her address. To you, ma'am.
Thank you. A very good morning to all here and namaskar. Madam Anuradha Prasad, Special Secretary, Ministry of Labor and Employment. Ma'am Dagmar Walter, Country Director, ILO India. Mr. Atul Sopti, DG Scope, with whom I continuously keep on having dialogues of how we can improve women participation in CPSCs, among other discussions. Mr. Ranjan Mahapatra, Director HR IOCL and Head of Scope HR Committee, who is very renowned in the HR field. Senior officials of ILO Geneva and Bureau of Employers Activities. Senior officials from Ministry of Labor and Employment. Senior management from public sector fraternity, all who are connected here, ladies and gentlemen. It's a real privilege actually to be in this panel of dignitaries and in a panel which are women heavy. Of course, no offense to Mr. Sopti and Mr. Mahapatra, thank you for being here, but this panel is a woman heavy panel and it feels so good. And we are here for the release of a very important study, Impact of Work from Home on Women Executives and Managers in PSCs in India. The study conducted jointly by Scope and International Labor organization is of vital importance, especially at this point of time when organizations across the world are undergoing a paradigm shift in workplace norms and are moving away from the traditional concept of physical office infrastructure. In fact, there's a thought in many companies today as to how much of physical office they would maintain and how much of it would be work from home. The business focus today is to become nimble-footed and develop capabilities to maneuver faster in case of unexpected turn of events in future. This would mean not only more tech-enabled processes and systems, but also creating a digital-oriented mindset among employees. Because working from home requires a lot of efforts in increasing our digital reach. The silver lining during COVID, if we were to search for one, is that it has been instrumental in pushing organizations for a quicker adoption of digital transformation, be it meetings, IoT, in work or in work from home. Actually, it made us the coming of COVID and the lockdowns. It didn't give us time to prepare, and we were forced to do it. And when we are forced to do something, we do it very fast. In fact, the circumstances in which the facility of work from home was adapted gave us very little time, as I told, to make arrangements or facilitate the setting up of appropriate infrastructure, owing to which the vagaries took some time to understand before optimization could be done. But all organizations, be it private sectors, okay, they are digitally far ahead of most of the CPSEs, most of the private sectors, but CPSEs also did very well. I remember by the 22nd or 23rd of March, when there was lockdown, and we had the first, I remember our department, we were there at that point, we had the first virtual meeting, maybe in next 3 to 4 days time. And we didn't know at that point of time that there is something like this where at least 70 or less, about 100 people had joined. We didn't know that it was possible. And we all did it, and we did it fast. So one, we are capable of making fast shift. First, when the existence itself is questioned. This pandemic has forced organizations to revisit the fundamentals as well as long-term strategies. These are interesting times. What was the crisis management effort in the form of work from home is now being envisaged as an alternate definition of the workplace. In fact, it is being deliberated, adopted by many as an option to contain cost and save commuting time. And also it is giving an option to many men and women who want to work from home because they have other commitments like the work, the pressure of the family, the amount of time on which they have to come to dedicate to the family also. There are many reasons why work from home is preferred by today's women, who constitute a significant percentage of our workforce. The corporate world, including PSEs, need to incorporate this by implementing appropriate policies and procedure. We need to provide an enabling environment. The study will give us a lot of insight for us when we work towards this policy making in our respective companies. And as Mr. Sopti said, there would be a net of people who would be trained to be champions for this. I'm sure a lot of inputs can be taken by the group who can teach the other CPSEs what exactly we need to do to have this culture of work from home incorporated in our policies also. The challenge for the individual also remains when the work from home starts as a policy. The challenge is that he or she has to take onus of performance on themselves, while that of the organization challenge would be of governance. The opportunity of work from home, therefore, comes with a responsibility of meeting the job requirements with the same dedication as in physical office and an appropriate balance between the professional and personal self. Women are the basic caregivers at home. So when they're at home, the responsibility naturally, it is expected that responsibility for family would increase. So women have the challenge of women, how to balance that part would become quite significant, and which we would have to balance out. There is a small flip side in the work from home. The flip side, which I feel is that while it seamlessly connects people beyond geographical boundaries through virtual platform, there remains the concern for social interactions and team building, for bonding and ownership. I think a bit of, while we are making policies, if a bit of this can also be incorporated as to whether the team could meet once in a while, how they would meet, so that the team building continues. Because as we all know, the efficiency basically comes from the teamwork, how efficient the team is performing. I'm sure that this study and its recommendation, especially focused on women, can give the confidence to individual organizations to adapt work from home, considering the optimal mitigation of risk to the individual and the organization in the best interest of production, convenience, and morale. The aim is to provide an optimized work-life balance in ensuring professional commitment with dedication on one hand, while allowing for fulfillment of caregivers' role in the family on the other hand. Hence, as responsible corporate citizens, PSCs through the HR domain need to engage in extensive deliberations on many aspects, including policy effectiveness, applicability for your business stream, determinants of productivity, performance evaluation, attendance, and leave management recognition, etc. I'm sure Scope ILO study shall certainly help us in looking at the concept of work from home with greater objectivity and arriving at solutions to make it more effective without compromising on the productivity or efficiency of the employee. As chairperson Scope, it is a very proud moment for me to see the hard work and dedication of so many individuals culminate into a useful report to pave the way for constructive solutions to make work from home viable and acceptable. It is indeed an honor to have the release of report in the gracious presence of Special Secretary Ms. Anuradha Prasad, who has been a motivational force behind many labor reforms and policies. I'm also grateful to Ms. Dagmar Voltaire and ILO for their support to Scope. I understand that ILO's collaboration with Scope is deep-rooted, and women empowerment is an important agenda for both organizations. I look forward to more meaningful collaborations of Scope and ILO for adding greater strength to the public sector fraternity and the country at large. I would like to acknowledge the tireless contribution of DG Scope and his team in energizing this apex body, representing the Indian PSCs into a dynamic organization. It is my request to PSC heads, and more specifically to all PSC HR team, to draw guidance from this report for developing meaningful and progressive policies in their own organization. I'm sure here Mr. Mahapatra, who is a head of a major CPSC, Maharatna CPSC, he would also drive the other CPSCs ahead in making such policies. Thank you so much. Namaskar.
Thank you very much, ma'am, for your kind words, for your encouragement, and also enlightening us with your wisdom. It's a real privilege. Now we have with us Ms. Anuradha Prasad, Special Secretary, Ministry of Labour and Employment, Government of India. With an extensive experience of over 35 years, Mr. Anuradha Prasad has made special contributions in the areas of public policy, public finance, labor laws, and social security. She chaired a tripartite committee whose recommendations led to amendment in 2019 in the regulations under the Mines Act 1952, which made women eligible to work in any mine, both above and below ground. She is also holding the post of Director General Employment in the government since July 2018 and has been leading the National Career Service Project for transformation of the public employment service through use of technology. We'll request Anuradha ma'am for the special address. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Soma Mondal, Chairperson Scope and Chairman SAIL. Shri Atul Sopti, Director General Scope. Shri Ranjan Mahapatra, Chairperson HR Committee Scope. Ms. Renuka Verma, Member Task Force Scope Task Force. Ms. Dagmar Walter, Director, ILO Decent Work Team for South Asia and Country Office for India. Ms. Chimge, Senior Advisor from ILO Geneva. Dr. Malika Basu, ILO Consultant, Delhi. Other colleagues from Scope, Public Sector Enterprises, ILO Geneva and Delhi, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning to everyone. And at the outset, let me tell you, it gives me great pleasure to be joining this program today with experts from the public sector, with experts from ILO and Scope, as we come together for release of the study on impact of work from home on women executives and managers in public sector enterprises in India. I would like to congratulate Scope and ILO on undertaking the study on this very important and topical subject of great relevance in the present challenging times. The study has focused on women executives and managers in public sector enterprises. In fact, as was mentioned by Mr. Soap, the need to empower women and to increase their participation in the labor force is one of the foremost priorities today. Government, through legislative provisions and developmental schemes, has taken several initiatives to improve women's participation in the labor force. I would like to take this opportunity to touch upon some of the initiatives that have been taken. In order to encourage employment of women and for creating congenial work environment for women workers and employees, a number of protective provisions have been incorporated in the labor laws. Liberation Act 1976, now subsumed in the Code 19, already provides that there shall be no discrimination in recruitment or payment of wages among employees on the ground of gender. A number of amendments have also been enacted in the existing laws in recent years to encourage more women to enter the labor force. And these include enhancement in paid maternity leave from 12 weeks to 26 weeks, provision for mandatory creche facility in establishments having 50 or more employees, benefit of paid maternity leave, which has now been allowed also to adopting and commissioning mothers. Further, a provision has been made in the law that if the nature of work is such that a woman may work from home, then with the mutual consent of employer and the woman employee, she can work from home after availing the maternity benefit. So this provision for work from home in continuation of the maternity benefit was introduced in the law in 2017 itself. Till 2019, under the mining regulations, as was mentioned, women were prohibited from working in any underground mine. And also in above ground mines, their working was restricted to daytime hours only. Representations were received from women mining engineers who had passed out of ISM Dhanbad and other colleges, engineering colleges, requesting for a change in the law because it was affecting their career progression. Also, some of the companies in the mining sector approached the government asking for the change to be made, as it was restricting them for employing more women, both in senior positions as well as down the ranks, because they could not rotate the shifts, etc. So they asked us for a change. And accordingly, the tripartite committee was constituted and we reached a consensus despite some challenges. And then the regulations were amended in 2019 to allow the employment of women with their consent and subject to adherence of safety, security, and other conditions in the above ground mines during all hours, both daytime and nighttime hours, as well as in the below ground workings between 6 a.m. and 7 p.m. in technical, supervisory, and managerial work. As we are aware, the existing labor laws have now been subsumed in the 4 labor codes, which have incorporated these recent changes and have also brought in certain new additional provisions for women. In the Occupational Safety, Health and Working Conditions Code 2020, a special section has been added relating to employment of women. And this specifically provides that women shall be entitled to be employed in all establishments for all types of work under the code, and they may also be employed with their consent during night hours, subject to due adherence to their safety, holidays, and working hours, or any other such conditions as may be deemed appropriate by the concerned government. So this is a big change, because as of now, women are restricted from working in the factories, in the night hours, in many of the shops and establishments. In many states across the country, they cannot work after 7 p.m. So with this change in the labor codes, the employment avenues should increase tremendously for the women workers. So these changes in labor laws, they've been brought about in response to the wider socio-economic changes and the global trends. Yet, as we are witnessing, the world of work is not static. It is changing, and it is changing at a rapid pace in ways unimaginable a few years back. And these changes are mainly being driven by the force of technology, which has dissolved boundaries and made us all connected and online most of the time. The concept of work being done at specific locations with specific purposes, with perceived need for people to show up and be seen, whether in offices or banks or even factories, is now changing. And this change has been accelerated by the COVID-19 pandemic. Remote working, including work from home, which was already being practiced in certain sectors, mainly the IT sector, and in certain job roles, has now become more universalized, as the chairperson was also mentioned. Keeping pace with this change, government has notified Draft Model Standing Orders 2020 under the Industrial Relations Code for the service sector. So these draft model standing orders are pertain to the service sector, in which a specific provision has been made for work from home, subject to conditions of appointment or agreement between employer and workers. The detailed guidelines will have to be evolved, and the ILO scope study provides a very useful starting point for such guidelines and policy. If the work from home policy, as has been suggested in the report, becomes a more acceptable reality, then we are looking at more opportunities for women. The greater flexibility gives an outlet for working women to strike a balance between their professional and personal aspirations, thereby making them more efficient in both their roles. And of course, most important of all, I believe that flexible remote working arrangements in an increasingly digitalized economy, with rise in e-commerce, e-services, and online freelance work, will create new avenues of employment and will help in reducing the informal economy, which is a very big policy priority today. At the same time, there are challenges relating to access to technology, upskilling of digital skills, ensuring congenial working conditions, also the need for socialization, as was mentioned, and a fair distribution of care responsibilities at home. In this background, I compliment SCOPE and ILO on taking a progressive and proactive role in turning this pandemic into an opportunity by utilizing the time to study the various aspects of working from home, identifying the strengths and the issues to be addressed as we adjust to this new normal, as was mentioned by Dagmar and the other speakers. So I again compliment SCOPE and ILO for undertaking this study, and SCOPE has been associating with the ministry in all our tripartite consultations and with very useful suggestions. And I hope from the starting point that has been established by the study, we take this forward and evolve a very useful and relevant policy on work from home, applicable not only to the public sector enterprises, but to the economy at large for our country. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, ma'am, for your kind words, for your presence, for your support and guidance. So now we will move ahead with Ms. Sanchir Takshimek from ILO ACTEMP. Ms. Sanchir is Senior Advisor of ACTEMP, overlooking ACTEMP activities in the Asia Pacific region. She has been extremely supportive and helpful in undertaking different initiatives with employers in the region. We will hear more from her, and I will therefore request Sanchir for her remarks on behalf of ILO ACTEMP. To you, Sanchil. Thank you.
Unmute myself. Yes, thank you. Thank you very much, and a very good morning to all of you from Geneva. I am really, really happy to join this event, and actually for several reasons, as I said at the very beginning. Firstly, because this particular collaboration with Scope on women executives and managers dates back a few years and originates from the discussions that we had with Scope members in Geneva. We hosted several delegations of executives visiting UN agencies and business schools in Europe, and it was very striking that there were very few women among them. Secondly, I'm really happy to join this because I'm joining the group of such formidable women, and of course men, but it feels that the tide is moving. The interest and participation in this event really speak for themselves. Thirdly, it's very inspiring to see that as a result of these efforts, which have been going on for several years now, many talented women executives will have a better chance of fulfilling their management potential. Therefore, it's extremely encouraging to see an active effort and a consistent approach that Scope is taking to promote and support women managers in partnership with the International Labour Organization. This project is not only building a strong foundation and demonstrated leadership for greater gender equality, but contributes to greater business efficiency and performance of Indian public enterprises. I want to commend Scope for this important and relevant achievement, particularly in the current context, as many of the previous speakers already said. Today, we are all grappling with unprecedented changes and challenges, with many facing a very uncertain future. It's hard to find anyone who has not been touched by loss, pain, or anxiety one way or the other. Women have been particularly affected, and the ILO monitors, the COVID monitors estimate that globally, employment losses for women stand at 5% versus 3.9% than for men. Women in particular are much more likely to drop out of the labor market and become inactive. In the last 15 months, the pandemic outbreak tested our governments, institutions, and systems, including employer and business membership organizations across the world. Our study conducted last year on leading business in times of COVID crisis revealed that nevertheless, employer organizations have been demonstrating agility, resilience, and ability to innovate. The crisis reminded us of the crucial convening power and leadership role that they play by being the voice of business, finding solutions, and responding to the challenges. And I think today's event is one of the really great examples of this leadership. The crisis also reminded us how essential businesses and enterprises are for jobs, livelihoods, and economy and society as a whole. Thanks to advances in technology, many organizations and businesses have been able to continue and adapt their operations in conditions of full or partial restrictions. For many, remote working has been the only way to continue business, maintain jobs, and ensure stability. In this context, let me recall that already in 2017, the ILO scope study, which was already referred to several times by the previous speakers, found working from home potentially desirable as a flexible form of work arrangements. This pandemic made it an inevitable option. Exploring the impact of working from home, particularly on women, at a time when it's most needed is very commendable. Scope is setting an example to the employer community, not only in India, but internationally. I want to highlight that gender equality, inclusion and diversity are no longer an add-on consideration for government policies and business practices. They have a very clear and proven economic, societal, and developmental effect and benefits. Sustainable development can only be achieved by tapping into the infinite talent pool offered by women, sharing family responsibilities, and breaking the glass ceiling. This study report is part of our global initiative on women in business and management. For the last few years, we have been extensively working on assessing the barriers for advancement of women in business and management, and developing and offering practical tools to help employer and business organizations to take the leadership on this critical issue. Our latest endeavor will look at the enterprise approaches to diversity and inclusion in 10,000 enterprises across 40 countries. Without preempting the presentation by Dr. Basu, I want to highlight the significance of this particular study, which goes beyond gender diversity and inclusion. It offers insights into the corporate strategies for business continuity, resilience, and human resource management, especially in the disruptive environment. And I think this was already been spoken of by the previous speakers. We also commend Scope for setting up the network of champions, which was mentioned as well. This network is a demonstration of Scope's commitment and leadership in responding to the needs of membership, members, to ensure a more inclusive workplace. We understand that all 12 network champions actively participated in the focus group discussions and key informant interviews for this study, and it's really a clear demonstration of capacity that is taking shape in a very sustainable manner. It's encouraging to note that Scope is also adopting the guidelines on working from home included in the report, and it will make use of this as a new service offer to members. I'm sure that the Scope network champions will get the opportunity to promote these guidelines among members of Scope, and it will also be an inspiration beyond the public sector enterprises. I thank the Director General of Scope and his team for commitment, support, and advice that was given in the development and finalization of this report. I also want to thank Dr. Malika Basu for her hard work and doing much more than what was just required to make this a success. And I think the praise from the Scope chairperson and the other colleagues who have spoken before is really a testament to the great work she has done. A special word of thanks to my colleague Dagmar Walters, the country director, and the program officer Ruchira Chandra for their support and participation and for making this launch possible today. And last but not least, I want to mention Ravi Paris, who has been absolutely instrumental for moving this initiative forward and making it success. I want to conclude my remarks by saying that last Sunday was a great milestone for Indian women. Sinisha Bandla made history not only as an Indian woman executive at Virgin Galactic, but also as a woman, first Indian woman who flew to the edge of the space. She really made India proud. and shown that there is no limit to what a woman can do. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your deep insights, for your thoughts, and for your support, which help us to move ahead. Thank you very much. On that note, we will now move ahead with the presentation. I will by Dr. Malika Basu, who has been ILO consultant for the study. Dr. Malika Basu is working as gender analyst and knowledge management specialist and is also founder of the Development Initiatives for Change, DI4C. She conducted the first ILO scope study in 2017, and following which she is also part of training 12 champions. So now we would like to hear more on the study by Dr. Malika. Over to you, Malika.
Thank you, Ruchira. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you very clearly.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Ruchira, so much. And good morning, distinguished panelists and participants from across PSEs. Like all of you, I am very pleased to be here today presenting some of the key findings from this study that focused or looked into the impact of work from home on women executives and managers in PSEs in India. Prior to presenting, though, I would like to thank ILO and particularly Mr. Ravi Perez, Senior Specialist Employers Activities at ILO. Not only did he give me this opportunity to conduct or undertake this study, this was my second study on PSEs, and also for his support and help throughout its duration. Also, Mr. Atul Sopti and his scope team for all the correspondence you did, all the inputs you gave, also through an external panel. Finally, the scope task force, the network of champions who played a key role in this study from, I would say, from the time it was conceptualized till its execution. For today's presentation, since we do have a limited time, I would like to run the presentation quickly as follows. I'll give a bit of a background to the study, which has already been covered by Dagmar. The objectives, the methodology, some of the findings, which I've divided into 3 parts, the recommendations, guidelines, and a way forward. Coming to the background of the study, it's already been mentioned that the study is part of the larger ILO scope joint initiative on empowering women executives in PSEs. And this study is also second in series. The previous study, as was mentioned, was on women in leadership and management in public sector undertakings in India. And this study in particular focused on influential factors or hindering factors that influences women's career advancement or their progress within PSEs. Interestingly, this study, the previous study, had work from home arrangement as one of the key recommendations cited by the women executives, but the study did not really prominently highlighted this recommendation. The reason being, this study had a multi-layered approach. And during that time, many of the senior management or decision makers in public sector undertakings or PSEs were not really very favorable to acknowledging this recommendation that was coming from women executives. So while it was there in the previous study, we did not really highlight it as the or one of the recommendations. But then COVID-19 happened, a declared pandemic, and it became a catalyst in adopting the work from home arrangement. So the interesting part was that Scope and ILO got together once again, and they thought of revisiting the same set of women executives as was done in the previous study, which is this E4 to E9 level, and thought of seeing how are they now viewing the advantages and challenges of this work from home, and whether overall this work from home arrangement that was now being adopted or adapted in the PSEs, whether it could be considered a long-term sustainable solution. So that's a quick background to the study. And then if we look at, given the background, the objectives of the study therefore included investigating the impact of the work from home arrangement on women executives and managers in PSEs in India, also its sustainability. Also draw particularly upon the experiences of women executives in adopting this work arrangement. And with regards to the above, what the study did was it tried to specifically look at work from home on women in PSCs who are, many of whom actually play a multiple, rather a triple role simultaneously, that of employees, caregivers, managers, or leaders. Coming to the methodology of the study, this study in particular had a two-tiered approach or two-tiered approach, including both quantitative and qualitative methods. We did it in two parts, rather the two parts were simultaneously done. One was this online survey, which was administered through SurveyMonkey to, as I said, E4 to E9 level women employees in 201 Scope member organizations. Like Scope shared the survey with all its member organizations, of which we finally 1969 women employees from 50 Scope member PSCs participated. One aspect of this online survey is it had 26 questions, of which there were 4 open-ended questions, and one of these questions also allowed people to give a couple of more suggestions, like more than one suggestions. So at the end of it, we landed up, or I had to look at almost 8,000 views that came through these open-ended questions beside the 24 closed-ended questions. Alongside this survey, we also conducted the key informant interviews, wherein top managers or decision makers of 22 selected PSUs were spoken to. And these 22 selected PSCs were selected or identified based on certain parameters and in consultation with Scope and ILO. And of these 22, 7 were Maharatnas, 7 were Navratnas, and 8 were Mini Ratnas. From these 22 selected PSCs, a total number of 78 key informant interviews were conducted, of which 14 were CMDs, 21 were heads of HR, 22 were supervisors, team leaders of a unit, and 21 were women in senior management and decision-making positions. In addition, we also interviewed the Director General Scope. I would here just like to quickly mention that of the 78 KIIs, our 12 network of champions, they interviewed 12 supervisors or team leaders spread across selected PSUs, and they also interviewed 12 women in senior management and decision-making positions. So each of the network champions, they conducted 2 KIIs each for this study. I will come straight to the findings now, which I told you I'll share with you under 3 heads. So I'm actually starting with a kind of a conclusive findings, which is like based on what came out under the survey or through the KIIs. And we find that overall the study findings showed or highlighted 6 key dimensions of work from home arrangement. Why I decided to put this, as a conclusive finding in the beginning is because this in somehow influenced the subsequent recommendations and also the guidelines that came up as a key outcome of the study. So the key dimensions, to quickly run through them, is a well-defined work from home policy with unambiguous terms and conditions, provide safe environment to employees to work without apprehensions, identify critical support systems to ensure continued operations, decentralized decision-making based on ground situations or circumstances, a robust communication system with suitable digital or technological support, and the last one being well-defined measures to assess productivity besides well-defined metrics to assess performance. So we feel that the whole study could be kind of said that based on the findings of the study, this 6 key dimensions of work from home arrangement came to the fore. So now if I look at the survey, because I told you there are 26 questions, not possible to go through them here. So I've picked up some of the relevant questions to give an overview of what the survey findings were. And as you know, there were 1,969 respondents. One of the questions that was asked was that did they work from home following COVID-19 declared pandemic and subsequent lockdowns? Here I would like to mention that at the time of the survey, though, we found only a marginal percentage of women, that is 4.62%, were continuing to work from home. Most had returned to office, and this returning to office also included, if you see the data, on a partial basis or so-called on a roster basis. But yes, there was a time when prior to the survey, there were almost, except for 10% women who were not working from home, almost all had experienced the working from home. And quickly, if you are interested in data and figures of the 1969, we had over 1,500 respondents who belonged to the E4 to E6 category, and over 400 members who belong to E7 to E9 categories. One of the questions that was asked to the respondents was, were there any work-related challenges that they faced while working from home? And three things stood out in this. One was related to infrastructure, facilities, and tools. Second was real-time benefits of face-to-face interaction lost. And third one was loss of informal knowledge sharing that kept colleagues connected on a personal level. In addition to it, they were asked what were the other challenges that they faced while working from home. So in this, two came up very prominently. One was getting preoccupied with unpaid care work, and the second one was blurred boundaries between work and personal life. And I thought it is best to show it through a quote that we have also mentioned it in the report, what this blurring of boundaries were interpreted as. If you see two of the respondents I have quoted here, one of them saying, "It made me realize that working hours need to be defined as calls, discussions used to be happening even after normal working hours." Another one saying there was no clear demarcation between office hours and personal time. Bosses expected, since we are working from home, we'll be available round the clock. Some of the respondents also used that open-ended questions in the survey to share another aspect, that is issue of trust. I don't want to expand on these vocabularies, but somewhere this was also indicative that many times when you're working from home, there could be issues of trust, that whether you're actually working at home or you are doing something else. Coming to another question of what were the key benefits of working from home. So apart from the challenges, when people were looking at the key benefits, unequivocally, the key benefit cited was no commuting stress to office. So almost 81% of the respondents said that the key benefit was no commuting stress at all. Now, if you see, look at the figure, we'll find that better work-life balance was also cited as one of the benefits. But when we go through the responses in deep, or what has been mentioned through all these open-ended questions, even though this percentage appears to be high, like seen as one of the benefits, many added a rider to it. And again, I would quote, because I feel through quotes, gets explained better. The riders were as follows, or for example, if there is a well-defined policy, better work-life balance may be achieved through this arrangement. Policies must be in place defining protocols with provisions of required infrastructure to make working at home more productive. While citing the key benefits, I wouldn't say there was any glaring adverse or negative impact of work from home cited, though one aspect highlighted was heavier workload with long working hours. And other than this, there were concerns that it can weaken connectedness with team members. One of the speakers also mentioned, how social interactions matter. Also, it may affect the visibility of one's work within the organization. So that were the challenges, these are the benefits. Now coming to this key question, given a choice, or once the COVID pandemic is no longer an issue, how would the respondent prefer to work? Now, this is what I find is most interesting. The most preferred choice for women employees once COVID is no longer an issue is not to work from home, but they are opting more for flexi timings, flexible schedules combined with roster-based office working. So, based on this, we have actually drawn a inference to this understanding, which I will sort of say it at the end of the survey findings. But this is important for us, because if, as I started my presentation by saying that in the previous study, work from home was one of the key recommendations from the women executives, but by the time we have come to this study, it is no longer being projected as the recommendation or the most preferred choice. Instead, flexi timings or flexible schedules combined with roster-based office working is more preferred. Now, as to what measures can our companies, what measures can PSCs take to enhance employee engagement and facilitate work of remote employees, that is employees working from home, there were top 5 areas or aspects which were included or which were recognized, or people said it required a bit of firming. And these are, and you will see that these come quite repeatedly. Setting clear rules, establishing people's work hours under work from home arrangement, communicate work expectations, manage periodic virtual meetings efficiently, analyze important tasks and track progress on a time-bound basis, and ensure or make arrangements for employees' physical and mental welfare, example, stress management, safety, etc. This is another question that was asked, and since I work on gender issues, I had pointed this out to Ravi, because I was a bit surprised by the response that we had to this question. Frankly, I had thought that there would be a nil response to this question going by the people whom we were interviewing or asking to take the survey. The question was, did the respondent experience any kind of threat or any act of violence and harassment by family members or anyone else which made her feel unsafe and uncomfortable? And though the number may appear very insignificant to all of you, which is only 1.32%, but that amounted to 26 people of these respondents who responded to this question in positive. That is, working from home did make them feel unsafe or uncomfortable at some point of time. And why also I highlighted this as a separate thing, though as a consultant I should not be giving my own interpretation to this particular thing, but when I was talking to the HR heads, because everything is the grievance redressal mechanisms are working online, people could report if there were any harassment, say work-wise, but there was no scope for women probably to share this aspect of that was happening, say within the 4 walls. So I felt that maybe the PSCs could in general also let their staff know that if there is any situations that they would like to discuss, there is a platform where they could come and share not just work-related issues, but other issues as well. I mean, I don't know whether it's possible or not in a PSC, but I was surprised with the response to this question. There were a few other findings which I will quickly run through from the survey findings, and that was like respondents who had an additional role of manager or supervisor. They definitely felt that what we need to change is the supervisory techniques in a work from home arrangement. Some also indicated that adopting new techniques to assess performance of subordinates, though presently at the time of this survey when we were talking to each other, there was the way it was looked at was looking at or setting individual and weekly goals and ensuring participating in virtual team meetups. Another finding was about how are you rating your company or activities within the company during the pandemic. And I would say that there was a high rating for support from colleagues during the pandemic. So people were actually saying that colleagues were very supportive. And the good part is that this team spirit and coordination was later emphasized by all the senior management whom I could get to interview in PSCs. The lowest rating, however, was one which was given to companies providing with tools and resources needed to jobs remotely and stay connected. Example, pay for home internet or provide for any hardware or equipment. However, I would like to add here that this rating varied in different PSCs. That was also because some companies made the digital and remote transition much faster than some others. So Mr. Mahapatra is already there. Definitely his rating is not one on this. So women, two other things I would like to say before I conclude the survey findings. Women who particularly found themselves juxtaposed in a triple role, that is as employees, caregivers, also supervisors, team leaders, and some of them we have quoted in the report, articulated one thing upfront, and that is as an employee, and more so if in a leadership role, their focus is to achieve company's objectives. So women, I mean, I give this to the PSC women even in the previous study that I did, I think these women are highly empowered. They are not really looking for very gender-oriented, solutions to them. But on many things, they are very upfront. They said that, no, listen, gender cannot come in the way to achieve company objectives. However, they did indicate that carrying out full-time work in decision-making roles can be efficiently performed if they have a strong support system to take care of their household issues or household needs. And as we all know, during the pandemic, the support system actually lay paralyzed. There was no creche, no domestic help taking care of elders, etc. And as many of you, the previous speakers also noted, that the working women had to bear the brunt of it. But they did their best to bring a balance and move ahead to achieve, to the extent possible, in both the fronts. But nevertheless, it was challenging. It is challenging playing multiple roles, and therefore it is important that it is understood by everyone, both in the organization and at homes, to enable better productivity or the contribution of women workforce that we keep talking about. Now, as I told you, when I said that, in the previous study, work from home was the recommendation, but now the preferred choice has kind of diluted itself. But from there, we have drawn an inference, and which is as follows. Like, we feel that there is a mixed response to adjusting to the new norm of work from home. And indication is, going by the data, that many now, having experienced the work from home arrangement, may not prefer it on a long-term basis. And the inference that is drawn is that this work from home arrangement was tried out during the most challenging circumstances, which may have added to the pressure on women to fulfill more demands expected by them from families merely because they were at home. So it may not have been so demanding with a normal support system operating pre-COVID, also when the previous study was done. So also, amongst other things, lack of a dedicated and compliant workspace with inadequate IT infrastructure at home was cited as a challenge, at times discomforting to stay focused on work. Some 27% or so even noted a lack of inspirational work atmosphere at home. So having shared with you some of the key findings from the survey, I now turn your attention to the key informant interviews, which, as I said in the beginning, in the methodological part, that we interviewed 78 people from different categories, including CMDs, heads of HRs, team leaders, both men and women in senior or decision-making positions, preferably who were also board members. Now, the senior management and the decision makers who were interviewed under KIIs were also unanimous in their opinion that while the work from home was a necessity, it was forced post-COVID-19 declared pandemic, and it definitely cannot be applied for the entire company. For them, the new norm was not specifically the work from home, but how to return to function optimally with necessary safety and precautionary measures. It was reiterated that the experiences of PSCs show that work from home is a sustainable option. Nevertheless, it cannot be relevant to all departments or units in a company. So each needs to review its manpower requirements and functioning of its departments to come up with a practical work from home policy which keeps the company interest as well as employee welfare in place. KIIs also confirmed that most PSCs did not have a written work from home policy. Based on central and state government directives, periodic guidelines were issued, and mostly these guidelines refer to managing the manpower in post-COVID, as offices were directed not to work with 100% staff. Some other findings from the KIIs are as follows. None of the PSCs that I interviewed indicated to making any significant changes to their performance appraisal systems. However, there was a unanimity that in case of work from home, translating into a written policy document, performance appraisal systems would require a thorough review and modification with focus on specific quality deliverables by individuals. The heads of human resources in particular felt that this was also the right time for them to recalibrate their priorities, focus towards managing remote workforce, digitalize the corporate function, and reimagine workforce models. Some of them even share that they have already come out with different ideas and policies to deal with the pandemic. Overall, the main focus of the companies or the enterprises was to make their IT system, be it the e-offices, digitization, paperless functioning, etc., robust. Also make available the needed IT support at home for employees to work without hindrance. As stated by many of the key informants, operations, productivity, and performance, even in an exigency, could not have been compromised. For the KIIs interviewed, the three biggest concerns were dilution of team dynamics, distractions impacting working and focused approach, and sustained productivity and consistent results. So for them, these were the three biggest concerns. However, it was felt that even if the level of productivity of the employees were affected in the initial days of the lockdown, with the employees and the line managers gradually getting acquainted with the new normal, things have improved or things improved. So in almost all PSCs, CMD shared it with great pride, I must say, that their employees working from home contributed immensely towards the success of the organization and could also achieve similar level of productivity as before. And it was shared that while companies gave quarantine or so-called COVID leaves, it assured that its employees as such, or it ensured that such leaves did not have any bearing on any other type of leave or privileges that the employees had. In addition to this, all PSCs used various online channels to make their employees stay connected, besides connecting for work. And wellness programs were also promoted online. Now, upon asked to rate their company's work from home policy on a scale of 1, which is very low, to 5, very high, most PSCs prefer to give themselves a rating of 4. The reasons cited were 3. First, there was no written work from home policy, or there was ongoing process of developing the policy, or where a policy did exist, a review was being considered. Second, a large part of the company's business are related to field operations, also spread located in far-flung areas where work from home is perhaps not possible. Then the third is, since there has been no assessment of the impact of the policy or the work from home arrangement as yet, the companies did not wish to rate themselves 5 out of 5. Though they were confident that the work from home arrangement is unlikely to hinder the level of employees' productivity, also it will enable employees to meet their aspirations and personal responsibilities. One of the final points which I would like to highlight from the KIIs is that it was reiterated that any work from home policy is applicable to the company as a whole, which has to run on its performance and profits. Hence, a work from home policy can only be gender neutral, that is applicable to all employees, except that due considerations and exceptions are given to pregnant women, women with young children, women with aged parent, also people with special needs. In fact, in many instances, head of units or departments were given guidance to give women, pregnant, etc., the option to work from home. Nevertheless, it was suggested that any women-centric recommendations or guidelines put forth by the present study would definitely be taken into considerations by PSCs while drafting their respective policies. So at the end, I would like to say one thing unanimously credited across PSCs by all the KIIs, or at least most of them, was the resilience the employees showed during the pandemic. And in addition, since each of the PSC interviewed could withstand the pandemic and did not let its operations get affected, all found their business models to be resilient enough to overcome exigencies like COVID-19. So I end my study findings in this 3 categories and come straight to the recommendations. As I said, that I started with those 6 dimensions of work from home and then shared with you some of the key findings from the survey and the KIIs. So overview of all that could be clubbed under 10 interconnected recommendations. these have also come through some of the quotes that I used. Formulate a work from home policy with unambiguous terms and conditions. Communicate the policy effectively to all employees. Also, any amendments made to work expectations due to the changing situation. Provide support for setting up equipment and infrastructure to facilitate work from home or remote working. Define impact on entitlements, privileges, benefits, compensations, if any. Define metrics of assessment for productivity and performance. Define provisions regulating absence and leave. Carefully draft the secrecy and confidentiality requirements or agreements. Give proper directives to line managers for work from home to be effective. They must understand that their colleagues work from home arrangements. Also discuss issues like burnouts, work stress, work-life balance, etc. Manage periodic virtual meetings efficiently, facilitate digital archiving or reporting by employees, make arrangements for employees' physical and mental well-being, policy to succinctly cover medical and insurance benefits. Many of these are probably already done or being covered by some of the PSCs that we have interviewed. But overall, I would say these 10 interconnected recommendations were drawn from the study. But the most, I would say, most critical outcome of the study is the guidelines that were formulated based on the findings from the recommendations. And it is called, and it was concretized into calling it a guidelines for a gender sensitive work from home policy in PSCs. And these, before it was reported in the study report, these guidelines were also again discussed with select key informants, which included 1 CMD, 2 head HRs, 1 senior management and director general scope. So before the guidelines were given final shape, it was again shared with a group of people. It also included our network of champions. And these guidelines can actually be read in attribution to the 3 roles women play: employees, caregivers in the PSUs, employees, caregivers, and leaders in PSCs. I would definitely say that some of these guidelines are applicable to all genders. Some guidelines will also appear overlapping, but the point is that a working from home policy integrating these guidelines is definitely recommended to ensure that employees now and those joining in future are clear about working from home practices. A quick 3 points on the rationale behind these guidelines, calling them gender sensitive guidelines, is flexibility and customization are important elements in any work from home arrangement. The unpaid work women do is one of the biggest barriers they face to reaching their potential. And women often need to make additional efforts to structure their day and compartmentalize their roles to be productive and add value to what they do. The guidelines is actually a 14-point guidelines, as I said, can be attributed to the 3 categories that we mentioned, employees, caregivers, leaders. But I just thought I'll just pick up few of those 14 points to let you know what the guidelines are indicating, to spell out clearly and in written both the employers and employees' obligations under any such work arrangement. And I think this was widely missed by the entire survey group that we were asked to respond. Then training and sensitizing line managers and supervisors on work from home modalities and expectations. Then besides availability, expectations, communicating work expectations as well. That is, communicate clearly the work allocated, agreeing upon individual tasks and responsibilities, which is measurable in terms of task fulfillment, achievement, also success. Giving due attention to pregnant and lactating women, women in need of ant and postnatal care, also women with special needs besides single parents. This has already been taken care of by many of the PSCs we interviewed. Finally, another point is determining the technological needs of employees working from home. It could be hardware, software, high-speed internet connections, learning skills, etc., so as to perform tasks assigned efficiently through ITC services. Finally, the way forward, it is it has been shared by SCOPE and SCOPE Task Force, the network of champions, that they will promote the guidelines among PSCs in the SCOPE membership and within their own organizations. I feel that it would lead to getting feedback from the management and to adopt it to, like Mr. Sopti was saying, this needs to get adapted to organizations' requirements. So SCOPE can actually facilitate converting these guidelines into customized toolkit in line with organizational requirements and facilitate any PSC working to develop its work from home or remote working policy. Then revise and finalize. Once you get this feedback from specific managements or specific PSCs, the guidelines can be revised and finalized as required. And overall, I'm sure everyone is hoping that the study will be shared with multiple stakeholders, and the SCOPE, being the hub of PSCs, will encourage all its member organizations to integrate these guidelines into their policy. With that, I would like to end my presentation. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Malika, for the detailed presentation and also presenting key aspects of the study. It's also very helpful when we have distinguished speakers with us. And I would also like to mention that around 250 people have joined us on this platform, and others are also joining live. So it's very helpful and will have a way forward. Now, can I request the IT team to play the launch video since we have already seen the presentation? Yes. Thank you very much for that video. And I think in the virtual world where we are living, this is most effective way of launching any study. For the can I also request speakers to kindly showcase the copies of the report so that we can mark the formal launch? Maybe IT team, you can put the speakers in spotlight. Can you put other speakers also on the same time? And also Ma'am Anuradha and Shuma Ma'am, if you can also put them in the spotlight. Thank you. I think we captured it. Thank you, IT team. And now we have, as per the schedule, we have a quick interaction session. I'm not sure how many questions we will be able to take, but if there are any significant questions, which since we are joined by around 250 people, if anybody would like to raise any question, they can put on chat box or raise their hand and we can just read out. I have received some other questions from other platforms. So I will just read out, and maybe if Malika can mention something if she would like to say at the moment. That one question is raised regarding that, does work from home also lead to delays in decision taking and scattered timelines track decision making for too long? So that is one question. Other is that it is being observed that there is still some resistance in accepting work from home and is being taken as a perk. How should organizations ensure that policy is taken seriously? How should teams be encouraged in absence of social interactions and team building of the office? Do you think remote working is likely to make performance appraisal more transparent? So those are some of the questions which we have already received at the moment. If there is anything which our panel members, especially from ILO and Scope, if they would like to mention anything on these aspects, we'll request them to do so. Maybe I will also request, because it has been mentioned by different speakers also, and this entire exercise, my colleague, Mr. Ravi Perez, who is the Senior Specialist Employers Activity, ILO DWT, has been the pioneer or the person who has led this entire work, and he's instrumental in taking this study and steering the work. Maybe if he would like to share some thoughts at this point of time, looking into some of the questions and concerns. Over to you, Ravi.
Thank you very much, Ruchira. Good afternoon and good morning. Well, I'm extremely pleased and honored to make a few comments. All I can say is that this is a great achievement by Scope, and also with due consideration of the effort and time and work done by Dr. Malika Basu in this, and of course, I must say, the 12 network champions. I have had the privilege of being connected with all the ILO Scope initiatives since 2017. So I would really like to make a few comments on this particular study. Well, I think the pandemic brought out a new dimension to working from home. Up to that time, working from home was nothing new. It was already there. But the only difference was that it was predominantly limited to those who worked from home by choice. After the pandemic, the impact of the pandemic made work from home inevitable. In other words, it was imperative. There was no choice in the matter. A lot of us had to work from home. So I think this study needs to be understood in that context. Well, as already pointed out and highlighted, this study has a lot of credibility on account of its rich quantitative and qualitative standards. It had a record number of 1,969 respondents and 78 KIIs. The unique feature of this study is that the set of guidelines that have emerged out of the recommendations. It is once again opening a path and an opportunity for Scope to offer a new service product to its members. It makes the unbroken thread that has tied all our past activities that can be extended further for more effective initiatives in the future. So I'm sure the public sector enterprises within the membership of the Scope will adopt these guidelines and even move further in developing working from home policies in line with its needs and requirements. Well, just commenting on this question that was posed, I think it's a very, very important question, the aspect of the effectiveness and the, how quick decisions can be made. And also this whole question of performance appraisal is going to be a huge challenge. I think these are aspects that we need to look at. But I think judging from my experience and also having talking to a lot of people, I feel that decision-making has been actually quite effective in this virtual mode as we move on. because there is more time to talk to more people, more important decision makers are free enough to get into small consultations online. So I think to that extent, there is more time for interaction in terms of this virtual mode of communication. So I will stop at that. I am sure there are so many others who want to make comments. Thank you very much, Ruchira, for giving me this opportunity. Many thanks.
Thank you very much, Ravi, for sharing the insights and also supporting on some of the questions which have been raised, because even though in the chat I can see there are question raising to that how this policy will be taken forward, and if there is COVID-like situation in the future, or what will be the role of champions, and how there are questions relating to data confidentiality as well. And I think these aspects will be taken forward as this moves ahead with scope. So I think because most of the questions are relating to implementation of these policy and also how to move ahead in other situations. So I think that will be addressed. And since we are already running late on time, I will now request, or if there is anything else.
I would like to add something.
Yes,
there was one question on how this acceptance to the policy would come. See, in a public sector, we have all seen, we work in public sector, the acceptance comes only when the policy is accepted by both, by the line managers and by the employees themselves. So it is, both have to strive hard. The line managers have to similarly, if women or men who are working from home, they have to ensure that their work is productive. So there would not be complaints from any side. So how best the HR can make a policy where the total governance, like I spoke earlier, because in this COVID times, as you rightly in the presentation I saw, there was a issue of people were given a lot of work, and that still continues. So, I find a lot of my colleagues in my secretariat also find the evening doesn't end. Work continues. The habit started since last year, and now work from home jo ho gaya, abhi, now they are going home and working. Maybe the work ends at 12 o'clock. But at the same time, there may be, I'm not saying, there could be some who may not be, work from home becomes in our total governance of how much work who is doing, we have still not evolved there, where other private sectors, like they have a system of logging into the work. This is the work I have done. So public sectors don't have that system. So I'm sure Mr. Mahapatra can help us in that, because it's very important that if you want this to be successful, it has to have acceptance both ways, and it comes with a lot of responsibility both sides. Understand? So a lot of hard work. Mr. Mahapatra, you can add if you, I think you got what I'm trying to say. You must be also facing similar environment. So I would like you to add with it.
Thank you. Thank you. I think you told it rightly. I think we just have to, I just wanted to add something that definitely requires a change of mindset, and which is already available. I think PSUs, मैं कभी-कभी सोती साहब को बताता हूँ, PSUs ऐसे बदनाम है. I mean, I think for the benefit of others, PSUs are unnecessarily, they're put into bad light, because their acceptability, their change of mindset is faster. And we have seen that during this period as well. And it requires this. And this, I think this report will also help people understanding what exactly has to be done, what exactly is required in this respect. And I'm sure what whether it is work from home or work from remote, I always called it, I think when I was speaking with Dr. Basu also, I was telling her, we should call it work from remote. I think wherever it is there, wherever my people are there, can they work? And what am I interested as an organization on the productivity? Can that be maintained? I know everybody cannot work from remote, but it is possible, and that that mindset has to be there. I think you have told it very nicely, ma'am.
I like to add one thing in this. Basically, as you rightly mentioned, Mr. Mahapatra, with the change of mindset which is required. At the moment, in fact, many people have told me from the public sector also that sometimes it is felt that somebody is working in office, he or she is doing better work as compared to work from home. So mindset has to be changed. We have to bridge the trust deficit, and for bridging the trust deficit, a lot of recommendations are given in the report, which will be sharing. In fact, certain points are there, people want us to share that, we'll be sharing that. And based on that, if defined laid down policies are there, I am sure that this particular report, and prior to that, we took this crisis as an opportunity during the COVID. This is going to be the cultural change in the organizations, especially the public sector. It is like the kind of facility which were given when the maternity leave started, then child care leave started, etc. But I think work from home is going to bring a, sea change in the kind of work we people are having. Sure, and I'll request everybody who is present here to go through this report, the suggestions which are given for the guidelines, etc., and they need to adopt it. And I'm sure that all the mindset will also undergo change, and trust deficit also will be reached. Thank you. There are some points I was seeing that whether we will get the soft copy, etc. I'm sure that we'll be putting it on our website also. That will be available. So we'll be sharing that. And one point I like to mention that this network of champions, somebody has asked that how they are drawn from various organizations. There are 12 in numbers. 10 are women employees and 2 are the male employees. And they have been trained by ILO. And further, as I mentioned, they will be trained by ILO at their Italy training center, virtual for 1 month. And they will be the people, because SCOPE or ILO, they themselves cannot go to all the organizations. So they are the basically torch bearer. They will be taking all these studies forward to all the organizations. We will, we will share the contact details also of all these network of champions, and further they will propagate all these things in the organization. Thank you.
Satyajit, there was one question I was seeing on can work from home be considered for working men? I just wanted to take a cue out of what Dr. Basu also shared in the reports. It has to be gender neutral. No second point on that. It has to be gender neutral. But at the same time, we also realize while implementing all the work from home policy or work from remote policies, that it has to be gender sensitive too. It just cannot be gender neutral. So I think probably this is what the report is also throwing it to us. And I would like to answer, yes, it has to be there for working men with small children. It has to be neutral in that sense, but it has to be sensitive to other requirements as well.
Thank you very much, sir. We'll request if any of the speakers would like to mention anything or other. Over, yes, Shingi, over to you. I can see your hand raised. Thank you
very much. I just wanted to come in and say that from the global perspective, it very much looks like we're going to be living with the pandemic for a very, very long time, because the developments in Asia particularly now show that the waves of this come and go. So working from home, whether you call it working from home or remote work, it's probably going to be a permanent fixture in the work arrangements. And I think the companies, whether these are public companies, private companies, they will need to adapt to this and really find new solutions to make this work for business. In this context, I think one issue that was already mentioned by a number of people, but I want to highlight, is that the management paradigm will need to change, because I think in the physical world where there is no restrictions to the social interaction, managers could correct the performance behavior in a different way. Just popping into the office and just to having a chat in the corridor, among others. But when you're managing a remote worker, I think the divided attention plus all the stress of having to balance the family responsibilities, the performance pressure, put a lot of pressure on workers. So in this context, managers will really need to be much clearer in their performance aspirations for workers. The communication and generally the management techniques will probably have to change. The other thing is, I think that has the whole remote working global experiment has also shown that the entire systems that surround the enterprise performance will also need to adapt, because you will need childcare facilities that are adapted to this new hybrid way of working. You will need support systems, policies that actually make this work in the new environment. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think our speakers and panelists have tried to answer some of the very pertinent questions which have been raised, but it is also very good to note that there is so much of interest which we are receiving from participants, and even in Q&A, I'm seeing a lot of questions which are coming. So it means that it is something which is very relevant and everybody is thinking about that and also raising questions. So I will request our IT team also to take note of those chats and questions, and maybe those can be circulated subsequently after this session. So thank you very much. I think we have done good justice to the questions and the quick interaction session. Now we have with us Mr. Rajan Mohapatra, Chairperson HR Committee Scope and Director HR IOCL. Mr. Rajan Mohapatra joined IOCL in 1987 and has gained extensive experience of over 3 decades on various business aspects, including terminal operations, supply chain management, and logistics. At Indian Oil, Mr. Mohapatra envisions to align human resources initiatives to strategic corporate vision and has pioneered several efforts focused towards higher growth and productivity. We'll request Rajan sir for closing remarks. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Ruchira. I'm audible?
Yes, sir, we can hear you very clearly.
Thank you. Madam Anuradha Prasad, Special Secretary, Ministry of Labour and Employment, Ms. Soma Mandal, Chairperson Scope and Chairman of SAIL, Atul Soktiji, our DG Scope, Dr. Walter, the Director ILO, Shimgi, Dr. Malika Basu, with whom I had a lot of interactions during this course, Mr. Ravi, Ruchira, and others from ILO, senior officers from ILO and ACTEMP, and of course, our leaders from public sector fraternity. I think I think we all have gone through this presentation. It has been excellent discussions, excellent deliberations. I think still we are almost late by 23 minutes now, but still people are asking questions that they don't want to let us go. So I would request Atul Soktiji sir, we should have one more panel discussions on this aspect once again, specifically for this. So with that, once again, let me start with one thing. I think Soma ma'am told whether Mr. Atul Soktiji and myself felt offended in this woman-heavy panel. But I am telling it's a great pleasure, and so must be feeling Soktiji. I mean, it would have been very pleasuresome if we would have been together also. But even seeing all of us on a screen where it's a woman-heavy panel, it really gives us a lot of pleasure. And thank you very much for really reminding me that. Of course, I think I must compliment Scope, particularly Soktiji, for driving this study. And I have interacted with Malika Basuji quite a few number of times, and to see with the passion with which this study has been carried out. I think this has strengthened our understanding of the finer nuances of the gender dynamics at the workplace. I think this has been a learning from most of us. I think they had 78 KIIs. I think this must have been a learning for all the 78 people as well. I think one thing is for sure. I think we all, she told also in the 2018 study, WFH, work from home, was mentioned, but never we thought that this pandemic will come and everything will be hastened. I think everything has been fast tracked. Everything has been fast paced. And although this is a challenge, and I must say, I think again, credit to the public sector enterprises who have converted these challenges into opportunities in many places. Not only as far as work from home is concerned, at many places. I think Soma ma'am was talking about starting this virtual meetings and other things immediately post this pandemic or post the lockdown which started on 23rd of March. Yes, people have realized, people had started it, people knew the system existed, but they started using it. And then they realized that it's such a powerful thing which is possible. And people working from home can also deliver results. That was also known. So anyway, I think this, to some extent, work from home was alien to PSUs because most of the PSUs are hardcore manufacturing companies. So many people are working in the field. But at the same time, at least the people who are working in offices, it has been realized that they can work from home. But again, it's a double-edged sword. I think a lot of things has come out in this particular study. I think endless office hours, working into personal time when you are working from home, and all other things. I mean, seniors not realizing the value of time for the people who are at home. So all those things are also there. But that also says that it is very essential to understand the impact of this altered paradigm. I think organizations have to understand, the leadership has to understand, people at all levels. I think Soma ma'am was talking about line managers have to understand this very well. I think if we want to make it successful, then it has to be there. I think we all understand one thing, that women, while acting as providers for their families, they also undertake the role of a caregiver, and it's a role that continues to remain undervalued. I think sometimes when at this point of time, the women started working at home and they had to perform the role, both the roles together. I think then we realized that what is the importance of this. So I think they have always, women have always been very adept. We have seen our mothers and sisters, we have seen everybody, how they have been better in multitasking than most of us. I think there has been no doubt on that. But at the same time, it should not be disproportionate. We cannot always tell that, okay, because you are adept in multitasking, you will do it that way. I mean, you will continue to do that. That also is not possible. I think we have to, as corporate entities, as people believing in gender diversity, we must develop a thorough understanding of our women colleagues' plights. I think that's more important. We need to find empathetic solutions at every point of time. I think in this context, I must compliment for this study which has been carried out. I'm sure this will definitely bring in a new way of looking at the work from home, the new way of looking at the gender sensitivity in all the organizations. Just taking a chance, because when I'm talking Indian Oil, it's not only Indian Oil, it's most of the PSCs must be doing the similar things as well. I think people have been working on bringing an end to this pink collarization. I think there was a time, I think oil and gas sector particularly was considered one of the most challenging industries to work for women. But I think Anuradha ma'am had told about the changes which has been brought in for people in the mining sector, people who has to work with the 2 shifts, night shifts, with all those things coming in. I think the PSCs, of course, I will talk about ISC, we have broken all such mental barriers and stereotypes, and our women are working across hydrocarbon value chain with unmatched excellence. I think the commitment is unparalleled, and I'm sure the gap which we always keep on feeling that at the senior level, more of women, that will be also happening. As an organization, we have been trying to empower, and I think we were one of the first organizations which worked on a work from home policy. I call it a work from remote policy. We worked on. I think we have almost implemented it in different ways, depending on the requirement, depending on the dynamism which is required. Understanding again the woman, the role a woman performs. I think that understanding is very, very essential if we have to really implement these policies well. We also have, like Radha ma'am was also speaking about, on the policies on childcare, policies on expected mothers, on this work from remote for expected mothers. I think Shivji was talking about these creche facilities wherever possible. All those things we have talked about it. We have implemented it. Even for development of our women, we have a very fine program like an ROE, which has been tailor-made to suit the career needs of our women colleagues. I think these initiatives, whether it is from IOC or from any public sectors, are an acknowledgement that organizations today are at an inflection point. I think as the pandemic continues to ebb and flow, our workforce must remain agile, must remain adapt to these new organizational needs. I think that's what is most important at this point of time. And I'm happy that this report has come out at an apt time with specific recommendations and guidelines which will pave the way. And as Director HR of a PSC and Chairperson of Scope HR Committee, I would request, of course, the fellow PSCs who are there to refer to the report. I think there is a big call on Sopti ji to send this report quickly. I think everybody is eager to now see this report. And I think we should develop formal policies on WFH or WFR as we say, which should not only be gender sensitive, it should be gender inclusive, without compromising on the commercial and performance expectations of the management. So before I end, let me quote Kofi Annan: when women thrive, all of the society benefits, and succeeding generations are given a better start in life. So for a brighter tomorrow, let us all move together. Thank you. Stay healthy, stay safe. Pandemic is not yet over. Please take care of yourself so that you can take care of each one around you. Thank you very much. Namaskar.
Thank you very much, sir. These are great thoughts and great motivation for all of us to move ahead and also take this work forward. I think now we have excellent discussion with the panel members. We have heard their views, and I think it is now time. We have inaugurated and launched the Scope ILO report. And I think on that note, it's time for vote of thanks. We have with us Ms. Renuka Verma, GM ERP HPCLN member and Scope Task Force, a network of champions. And with over 25 years of experience at HPCL, Ms. Renuka has played an instrumental role in HR. She is also entrusted with role of convener of Women's Network at the rate HPCL Swayam. So now I will invite Renuka ma'am for vote of thanks for this launch event. To you, ma'am.
Thank you, Ruchira. It is an absolute honor to have this opportunity to offer a vote of thanks on this landmark occasion, that is the launch of Scope ILO report on impact of work from home. And I'm here on behalf of the Network of Champions under the aegis of Scope and ILO. Respected chief guests, dignitaries, eminent speakers, all members, champions, and the distinguished audience present here at the occasion today. A lovely and warm day to all of you. It has been an honor and privilege to have hosted you today, and I'm thankful to each one of you to have graced this web meeting with your presence. We have been fortunate to have witnessed an august gathering on this momentous event, and we have had around 300 participants today in this meeting. As William Ward has said, feeling gratitude and not expressing it is like wrapping a present and not giving it. To begin with, on behalf of the Scope ILO team, I would like to express our sincere gratitude to our special guest, Ms. Anuradha Prasad, Special Secretary, Ministry of Labor and Employment, who spared valuable time from her busiest schedule. She shared with us in the morning as well to be with us and grace this occasion. Thank you, ma'am, for your encouraging words and sharing the various initiatives being taken by the Government of India for the welfare of the labor community and the employment. We are also immensely grateful to the ILO team led by Ms. Dagmar Walter, Director ILO Decent Work Team for South Asia and Country Office for India for her constant support and leadership to this project. Senior Advisor ILO, Ms. Chimgi, for sharing the ILO perspective on gender equality, diversity, and inclusion. We are extremely thankful to Ms. Suma Mandal, Chairman SAIL and Chairman Scope for gracing this event. Ma'am, you are a role model to many of us. DG Scope, Shri Atul Sopti ji, for his constant guidance, support, and providing all the impetus to this one of its kind initiative, along with the entire Scope team. Special thanks to Shri Ravi Perez and Ms. Malika Basu for being great mentors to us, for their complete involvement with the champions, extraordinary commitment to the objectives of this project, and continual immersions in the journey along with the champions. This study would not have been possible without the active participation of the large amount of women executives across the member PSUs and the WIPS members, along with involvement of the network of champions who facilitated participation in the surveys in their respective organizations. They conducted the key informant interviews and contributed with their valuable inputs. Their perspectives and responses to the surveys and KIIs has provided meaningful insights to the report. And from a woman manager perspective also. A heartfelt thanks to all the participants of the survey and the KII interviewees who shared their viewpoints and contributed to the study in a very meaningful manner. We owe our special gratitude to our senior leaders, CNMD SCI Mrs. H.K. Joshi, CNMD Select and Director Technical EIL Ms. Vartika Shukla, Director HR ONGC Madam Alka Mittal, and Director HR IOC and Chairperson Scope HR Committee Shri Ranjan Kumar Mohapatra for their participation in the brainstorming workshops and along with other directors and senior leaders for facilitating in shaping the recommendations with their practical perspectives. I also would like to place on record our gratitude to our respective organizations, HPCL, Power Grids, NTPC, Encore, Airports Authority, MMTC, NBCC, and NSIC, who stand by their commitment to career advancement of women in PSUs and have lent their senior officers to these initiatives. Today, I take this opportunity to express my deepest sense of gratitude and appreciation to all those who have made this event such a resounding success. We now look forward for adopting of these recommendations of this study for building a better and balanced work environment for tomorrow. Thank you, take care and keep well. Namaste.
Thank you very much, Renuka ma'am. And with this, I will take the permission to conclude today's launch event. And it is very heartening to see that we have all the speakers and lot of participants who are with us since morning. And it is great pleasure and delight. We look forward to further implementation of report findings and subsequent collaboration. Thank you very much. And I will also like to thank the special thanks to our IT team, both from Scope and ILO, who have made this event possible on virtual platform, and also the communication team and all the officials of ILO and Scope. So thank you. Namaskar. Stay healthy and stay